Welcome to the battle of the century. On the left side we have fascism, a dangerous beast with incredible military capabilities. And on the right side we have non-aligned that literally does nothing. Let the fight commence. Ideologies are a cornerstone of Rise of Nations. They give incredible bonuses that can easily make you stronger. Just look at all that green color. Oh my god. Not only that, but there are 7 ideologies in the game, each with their own bonuses, but that begs the question, which ideology is truly the best in the game? This has been a question for ages. Is it communism, the weird Soviet kid expanding their influence by making everyone join their faction? Or is it democracy, the freedom to speak? Is it my dad? Or maybe even fascism, the feeling of power when you can spam tanks as Germany?
Oh my god, bro, their tanks are fucking massive.
Have a large navy as Japan, and get invaded through Sicily as Italy, because that is how it's done. Today, I am going to figure out what the best ideology in the game is, by using math. But not only that, I will also take in mind the current state of the world, and one may not be the best the entire way through. So that's why there can be 2 winners, one before 2024 and one after the year 2024. Now, why this specific year? Well, it's really only because before this time the majority of players will not be able to get the highest costing ideology, so that would be quite unfair. Also, I'll say this now, but fascism, democracy and communism will beat all the other ideologies any time of the week. So the early game will be a battle between newborns and the mid game will be a battle between adults. Also, I will not be counting starting ideologies in the early game like democracy for USA or socialism for China, because they are obviously better than non-aligned, and it's only a few specific nations that have these ideologies, so most of the players can't really obtain them in the early game. And don't get a policy in the early game unless absolutely necessary. You will just be wasting political power and will get a lower political game. Don't do that shit even if USA decides to liberate Europe. There's a button called Leave Game that is much more useful. And the categories that I'm going to use to decide on which ideology is the best is economy, if it decreases your expenses or increases your income, and also if it increases or decreases things like stability. Military, how much it affects your military strength and potential military strength. And finally, availability, for how many countries is this ideology useful for. And each ideology will get a rank from 1 to 3 on each topic, with 1 giving 3 points and rank number 3 giving 1 points. And the ideology with the highest points is the winner. Round 1, the early game. Before we start duking out the ideologies, we need to do a background check on each one of them. Wouldn't it be terrifying if every ideology was established by killing people? Oh, all of them are? Okay, change of plans. Let's go over each one of their pros and cons, beginning with non-aligned. Nothing! Socialism's pros are decent military increase, decent stability boost, less justification time, and an awesome factory output of 50% extra. Its cons though are minus 10% tax income, and it isn't good for countries with fewer than 6 civilian factories, because that's the new meta now. We have to get used to it. Liberalism on the other hand has plus 40% tax income and plus 25% unrest reduction. That's about it for its pros. It really sucks in everything else. It has a 30% more justification time, it has a higher military upkeep, and 1 stability lost for every war you declare on that is offensive, which is super bad. Nationalism doesn't have any cons and all the pros are good. It has manpower increase, minus 25% military upkeep, which is pretty broken at early game. It has a 4th less justification time, it has a decent stability boost, and 1 stability gain for every nation you declare a war on, which is quite possibly the most broken bonus in the game, but more on that later. Because now, it's time for the all-out war. Socialism versus liberalism versus nationalism versus non-aligned. You already lost. The only thing you have is your policy that is not good for anything except neutrality. So goodbye, the door's that way. Now, beginning with military. I think we can all agree that liberalism will get 3rd place. I mean, there's virtually nothing that makes it in any shape or form good for military usage. Higher military upkeep, higher justification time, and a minus 1 stability hit on offensive wars. Pretty terrible. So don't pick liberalism if you expect to become a world conqueror. You will instead become like a democratic fuck. 2nd place goes to socialism. While it has a higher manpower increase of 40% compared to nationalism's mere 15%, it falls flat to it in all other aspects, and no, The less war exhaustion gain isn't really good because you will still lose if I kill your entire army and you can't recover the manpower. Which is why the winner of the military topic is nationalism, unsurprisingly. It may only have a 50% manpower increase, but everything else about it is just so good. Minus 55% justification time, which beats socialism's 15%, and the most broken thing about its ideology in the early game, which is the +1 stability hit on offensive wars. Now this sounds small, but it's honestly an insane thing for your military. If you get maxed consumer goods and maxed government spending, you can consistently be at 90% stability the entirety of the game by just declaring on new countries all the time. And each percent stability you get gives you a 1% boost in all categories. For example, higher manpower, more tax, which is also good. So yeah, nationalism wins in the military topic. Economy. This is an interesting one. I will actually have to tie this one because it's just so close and everything depends on what everyone does. For example, nationalism will have the strongest if everyone has a bigger army because of the decrease in military upkeep. While the -10% tax income for socialism might sound bad, it doesn't matter that much in the beginning when you literally get a 50% factory output bonus in the beginning, making you able to sell lots of consumers and get you rich. So if that scenario happens, socialism is the richest. And if everyone does nothing, liberalism will have the strongest economy, and that's why everyone gets 1 point. And finally, the last topic, availability. Third place goes to liberalism. Just don't take it. It isn't useful for small nations with no income. It's not useful at the beginning when invading a country, because that gives you more income than taxes because you can steal their treasury. It isn't useful because it's almost impossible to invade with, because of the 1% stability decrease. Second place goes to socialism, because the only thing it's better at compared to nationalism is the factory output, and that isn't really good for new players or lobbies, where people have figured out the meta and have already sold all the possible consumer goods to all the AIs. So the winner of the early game goes to nationalism, which was probably quite obvious when I said it had no cons. So congratulations to nationalism for being the best ideology before 2024, but that was merely child's play. What about after 2024? Round 2. After 2024 for the third time. It's finally come down to this, to prove which ideology is the best. The communist utopia, the democratic dream, or the fascistic rule. Beginning with military. The third place goes to democracy for obvious reason. Literally, all of its debuffs makes it unsuitable to go to offensive wars. The only wars they can really do without any consequences are liberation wars. And we have already established that you immediately click on the leave game button when they do that. They may have a plus 110% tax income, but first of all, this isn't the economy topic, and second of all, it falls flat on everything else. A huge stability loss on offensive wars, 1/10 less army increase, and almost double the justification time. Without a stability hit on offensive wars, it wouldn't really be so bad, but it's that one thing that puts this ideology 6 feet under in military bonuses. And second place goes to communism, which means that first place obviously goes to fascism. Now, this was a very close one. Almost everything cancelled out one another. Fascism beats communism justification time and stability hit on offensive wars, while communism beats fascism's manpower increase. But as you can see, communism only cancelled out one of fascism's bonuses. Plus, fascism just got a new update, giving it another justification slot, making it even stronger. Also, I forgot to mention this, but the reason why these ideologies are undoubtedly superior is also because they get their own policy, basically increasing their strength, which fascism has, making it able to invade much faster by reducing unrest from invaded countries. So the victor in the military topic is fascism. Economy, the third place goes to communism. Yeah, the freedom line didn't actually get last place this time. Let's go. The cons are way stronger than the pros this ideology gives. First of all, you have to be a huge country with massive amounts of factories and resources for this to be actually useful. And since this is the mid-game, all AI countries will most likely not already be buying consumer goods from some other country that's not you, which is why the second place goes to fascism and first place to democracy. Fascism may have a -10% tax income, but it's not 25% like communism, and the -60% military upkeep is just honestly insane. It would basically require communism to have its resource income to be more than double that of its tax one, which won't happen since there are more people than resources. And as a cherry on top, its 12% stability boost is higher than communism's 8%. But okay, you might say communism's policy will give them a plus 15% tax income and research output and factory output bonuses, but like I said before, you have to have double the research income of the tax income to be comparable to the fascism one, and 60% minus 60% military upkeep is just much better if you do the math. Fascism would be in the first place, but since democracy can develop faster since it has a higher income, it will undoubtedly win, plus it has a broken policy giving it another 60% tax income. Like, what the fuck? Democracy was made for the sole purpose of naval warfare, which is understandable like USA and Japan. And finally, the last topic for this long day, availability. Third place goes to democracy. It's just not good for any players. The only players it would be good for is players that already have a huge country like Russia. But you have to go through liberalism first, and when you actually get to democracy, you will have suffered huge penalties and cannot invade anymore because of the stability decreased on offensive wars. And the second place goes to communism, which means that first place goes to fascism. Communism's factory output and resource increase is basically only good for big countries, and even then, the factory output doesn't really matter because we have things called mines and the research tab, and you only get communism in the late game, but fascism can easily be used by any type of country, whether big or small, and still gain all of its bonuses. So the best ideology in the game with 8 points is fascism. The second best with 5 points goes to communism, and third best with 5 points goes to democracy. And the reason why communism is second is because socialism is superior than liberalism, so you will just have a bigger country than them in the late game. So fascism is the best, end of discussion. But there can be a few exceptions like communism for Russia or China because they're already socialist.